Let me tell a tale of a world where heroes walk among us, fighting through the darkness left by monsters and by selfish men. A tale of glory rents asunder, sacrifice and battles lost. Our heroes know not what awaits them, and still they carry on. Let me sing a song of a family forged by trials and woe. On their own they falter, but together they will write their own tale of glory rent asunder, sacrifice and battles lost. Our heroes know not what awaits them, and still they carry on. What was rent shall be restored, what was lost now shall be found. The price of valor ever rising, but victory brings new rewards. Tales of glory, might, and wonder, hard-fought battles, treasures won. Our heroes know their fate awaits them, and so they carry on.
Hello. What's up, folks? It's me, Pixel. And I'm joined once again by Beast. How you doing, Beast?
Howdy, howdy, folks. I'm doing all right. Tired, but excited to see what comes of tonight.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you sip that pep.
Well, I just got home from work, and yeah, we're going to do some world building today. So, as you guys know, we've been doing a number of these world building streams. I think this is our sixth one that we've done. Is that right?
5, 6,
I think
18.
it's the fifth one.
Counting.
No,
Okay.
no, it is the sixth one. Yeah, because last one was Fabula Ultima. So, in any case, this is I
Okay,
think the sixth
okay.
one we've done. And we've gone over a number of different things in the previous streams, right? We've talked about like various different rules, things we can learn from like popular online media stuff, all kinds of different things. Today, what we wanted to do was put some of that stuff into practice in like a real practical way, right? Because I feel like, I don't know if you guys are anything like me, I've seen a lot of like YouTube videos on world building over the years. And I always enjoy like hearing what people have to say about it and trying to keep it in mind. But I often find that there's not like there are some streams of people kind of doing the pedal to the metal stuff.
The actual work, yeah.
But I figured, here we are. There's 10 videos in my world building playlist. We did some old ones about world building in these what's up lady stuff, by the way. This is also going to be a more interactive stream, I think, if folks are hanging out.
Yeah.
No. Oh, I thought the pizza guy was coming. Yeah, but then I forgot that. Okay. In any case, sorry. It's all fine. This is going to be a more interactive stream. Sometimes we're just sort of like almost lecturing or talking, having our conversation with less input from chat because we got, ideas we're trying to get through. Tonight, we are going to be talking to you guys as we go through coming up with world building stuff. So,
essentially, what we're trying to give to y'all is a direct look into our active imagination as it's working, to hopefully give you a little spark of the process that we're using. And Pixel and I use very different methods, so you're going to see those things clashing at times and how we compromise. And you can pretend like we're devils on your shoulders, like one of us is Beast and one of us is Pixel, and they're talking at you when you do your world building, if that's helpful for you.
Yeah. Stuff asks, is this still the all animal world? No. This is fully, we're starting from scratch. Here's what we did, right? Just to sort of to pull back the curtain here, which obviously I think we should do just because of the nature of this. We essentially each one picked kind of an idea that we've presented in a previous stream. Beast's idea was,
in a sense, it's a metaphysical decision based on a number, and I'll make sure that I explain that in a normal way over the course of this stream.
Yeah, it's basically a kind of creative way to decide something like, how do I put this? He's deciding on an axiom, and in this case, the axiom is this number is capital I important, right?
Say you could call it a sacred number. I think a lot of different ideologies, spiritual beliefs have sacred numbers, sometimes more than one, almost always more than one. In fact, numbers are sacred for different reasons. And by choosing this kind of sacred number, I'm going to show you how to make decisions about your world based on that number.
Yeah. And then I am the kind of like axiom that I'm running with is, and I don't know if it's as much as an axiom, but it's sort of an example of how to use the concept of myth making in world building, right? So in this case, what we did, we went to our Discord. I went to the AOA/Bonus Moms Discord. I pinged everyone in the entire Discord and asked them to vote on a number, and they picked 4. The numbers they had were 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they picked 4. With almost
Great
no
choice.
Context whatsoever, which is lovely. And then what we did is we pitched them a bunch of kind of foundational myths for my side of it. The myths that we pitched them, I just want to read these because it's fun.
Oh, yeah, they're
myths, good. And what we kind of did, and you guys might clock some of these and you might not, we took setups from like popular media, video games, stories of various different kinds.
Stuff that we like.
That we liked and thought might lead to an interesting thing. Our goal is not to recreate these stories, but just to use these setups as an interesting jumping off point. The myths that we pitched to everybody are, number 1, the moon is mad at you. Number 2, for God so loved the world, he lit himself on fire. Number 3, we'll make it if you believe. Number 4, the crabs are coming. Number 5, civilization is run on the corpses of giants. And number 6, every throne is a throne of bones. So those were the ones that we pitched, and people chose the crabs are coming.
Crabs are coming. So in fact, the number 4 and the crabs are coming. They are utterly unrelated until we figure out how they are related.
Yeah. So and those are literally the only 2 pieces of world building that we've got, and we're gonna kind of jump off from there. So how do you want to start? What do you think we should do? Should we decide on an answer to any of these various questions that are on the screen, or should we just like pick something and start relating it to this? What do you want to use as a jumping in point?
This is where I start. I essentially start playing a game of association with my brain. Yeah. I say, so in this instance, the number 4. What comes in 4s? What is like a common thing that relates to the number 4? Like I'm thinking 4 seasons. I'm thinking about like squares or rectangles. I'm thinking about a D4. you know, we're usually playing tabletop games with die, and a d4 is like this cool three-sided pyramid shape. So things that are associated with the number 4. And one of the things that I really like to do is to sort of play with the senses and to give you um, a, a stronger foundation for basically improv, for making stuff up and for getting descriptions for your game, is to basically pick colors that kind of help to, almost in a weird like synesthesic way, you pick, since the number's 4, we're going to pick 4 colors together, and we're going to decide what each of those colors kind of like represents and how they are represented in your world.
I have a first pitch that I'd like to make of just a thing. You might see it on screen there.
Okay.
What comes in 4s, and you listed a bunch of things. Something that occurred to me that could be an interesting move is to take something that comes in 5s, make 4 of them like holy and 1 of them unholy. And I thought senses might be an interesting angle, right? Because we've got, what is it, touch, sight, hearing, smell, and taste, right? So if there's like 4 of those that are like favored and 1 of them that's kind of like unfavored, that, or at least, it doesn't have to be for everyone everywhere. But that's just an interesting angle. I'd like to pitch it. We don't have to jump on that right now, but
no, actually, I'm going to jump on that right now.
Okay, we'd love to jump on that right now.
So
we're dragging out the trampoline and we're jumping on it right now.
Remember when I said that almost every belief system has sacred numbers, plural?
Yeah.
This is how it happens. As soon as you pick one thing to be something, immediately everything else in relation to it gains a new significance because of how it relates to your new number.
Yeah.
So we could say like 4 is the good number and 5 is the bad number.
Yeah.
Or coincidentally, 1 is the bad number, and when 4 becomes 5, 4 has then essentially been lost or corrupted, right? So now you have 3 sacred numbers for your world building. You have 4, which is the good one. Everything good comes in 4s. You have 1, which is like the outcast that's always screwing things up as soon as he gets the other 4 involved. And you have 5, which is what happens when 1 and 4 come together.
Sure. And I think we also maybe have a couple of other, if I can just sort of...
And check out this thing. We all
I was also going to suggest maybe there's an evil finger. Evil is stored in the finger. Probably the thumb. But it also occurs to me.
And 1.
Yeah.
And it becomes 5. And when 5 becomes 1.
Yeah. Business close. I also have a thought of like, if we subdivide a little bit, there could be an interesting interplay of 2 being like the holier subdivision of 4, and 3 being the kind of evil version of 2. But the thing about 3 that's interesting is if you add 1 more to it, you get 4, right? And now so it's like there's a redemptibility to 3 that there isn't to 1 or 5 in a way, right?
Yeah.
So there's kind of a lot of...
Now you see why I said earlier that 4 was a much better number than 3.
Yeah, for sure. So already you can kind of see how we're spiderwebbing a bunch of interesting sort of possible avenues that we can go down.
And this is pure ADHD, folks. Like, that's world building. Like, I took the number 4, and we've already decided on a lot of very interesting things.
Yeah.
And these are relationships.
And Stuff has said something interesting in chat. Going off of that, what if losing a limb would be considered a spiritual wound, like breaking the body's sacred fourfold balance of a creature? Fabulous.
Incredible.
Great idea.
You are now inventing a belief system.
And I also think, what if there's like a kind of like holy restoration that happens with like, I don't know, magical prostheses or something, like not arcane, but like, anyway, I think that might be cart and horsing it, but
so I do kind of want to, I suddenly remembered a real myth in human history, based on the number 4. And my intention is not to tell this well or correctly, but just to demonstrate like how some groups of people have already done this in the past. So many of you are probably familiar with the Native American medicine wheel. It's a circle that's split into 4 sections by an inner cross, and each quarter of the pie is a different color. Some of them are like white, yellow, black, red. Some of them are blue instead of white. Depends on different regions and different tribes. But the medicine wheel is the story of creation in some of these belief systems. And again, I'm not trying to tell this correctly. I'm just trying to give a various blueprint of like what a myth kind of looks like. So each section is one of the creations or attempts at creating a world. You had, let's say, the white was everyone was skeletons, and it didn't work because everyone died immediately because they were all skeletons. And then the black is, well, they crushed them all up and they burned it because they wanted to make a bunch of people out of the ashes, and they didn't stand up because the clay people just crumbled. So the black is gone. And then the red is, flesh and blood people, except they discovered fire and burned down the world. But some of them survived, and now in the yellow, the fourth one is where we are, and that's why we have the sun, because the sun is yellow and keeps everyone in line. That is again an intense butchering of a creation myth based on a number 4.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sorry, I'm starting to try to kind of like take some of these things that we're deciding on a little bit, and sort of just jot them down so we don't forget them.
So why don't we pick? In the meantime, I'm going to pick 4 colors that I think will set the basis for like a bunch of stuff. So let's divide all colors into 4 colors. And you might think that sounds crazy because there's so many colors, but there are actually languages out there that only have words for like 1 or usually like 2 to 4 colors. Like they have a word that kind of means red, but it basically means like red, brown, yellow, orange, like a bunch of colors, and they just call it all red because they don't really care about the distinction. Or they have other words to mean like red like a berry, red like dirt. So let's do red. Red's a good one. We can do black, blue, and in a lot of simplified colors systems, blue and green are the same color too. Gets weird. And yellow. Let's do that. All right, so red, black, blue, yellow. Those are some fun colors. So now basically everything is one of those 4 colors. Everything in your world, if it matters, is one of these 4 colors. So when you start describing a scene, you could say something like, over the black horizon, a yellow light shone, sparkling through red clouds of mist. Our heroes trudged forward with a blue flame, And then eventually you'll start deciding what any of these things means to you and your players and to the other people in the world, and you get a world. So let's start doing that. So shapes is the next thing. We mentioned the D4, which is sort of like a 3-sided pyramid. So that's a 3-dimensional 4-sided shape. And then you have rectangles, which literally just means 4 angles. So squares, trapezoids, anything with 4 sides, right?
Well, I mean quadrilaterals, right?
Thank you. Quadrilateral. I got a B+ in geometry, like a long time ago.
It's all good. Geometry was one of my better math classes. Got an A+ in that bitch.
All right, so now we're gonna pick some qualities, and by quality I mean like, how would you describe the color red? Like, what does red invoke in you? Fire is a good one. Heat or like blood is another one.
Sure. Yeah.
So we could do fire, blood. Let's just say that those red things are like the reddest possible things in your world. So like when people say red, that's the kind of redness that all red wants to be. Black, let's just say like let's say that the sky is black. And now we're making some really crazy decisions about our world. If the sky is black, like what the hell is blue and yellow? Like where are those going to come in? We'll figure it out. And again, this is mostly arbitrary until you have to start making decisions based on uh like a few things at a time, and then it kind of starts to click itself together. So if the sky is black, what else is black?
Okay, here's a thought.
Crabs.
Yeah. The bottom of the ocean is black. The deep.
Okay, the deep.
Right?
Deep
So
is
the
black.
highest possible thing and the lowest possible thing are somehow
As above, so
connected,
below.
associated, that there's a
Okay.
there's a parallelism or a connection or a something. You know, maybe there's a myth that if you swim down long enough, you'll fall out of the sky in another world. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. Who knows? I don't know. But that seems like a fun answer
It's a great answer.
that flows from something that's not true about our world, which is that the sky is black, combined with something that is. It's, I don't know. I like it.
Okay, so what's blue? Maybe blue is whatever. Let's just say the moon is blue.
Okay, sure. Blue moon.
Blue moon. So the moon is blue, and the moon is if the sky is black and the moon is blue, then the moon is basically the sun in this world. It's just like nighttime world, at least as far as we understand it. Or maybe it's a tidal world because of crabs. Maybe
Well, and
everything's run
I
off of
will
tide.
also say we've got blue and we've got yellow, which means we've got room for a blue moon and a yellow sun.
We
You know,
do.
that you know.
Well, then we could say that. We'll say yellow is sun. And
I think I'm gonna pitch something weird on blue.
yeah, hit me.
Mirrors and reflections are blue.
Okay, okay.
Because like
Okay.
the crest of the wave that actually reflects the light is reflecting the moon, and in a way that sort of translates to the pool of water reflecting your something, or to a mirror. And I think almost maybe that translates into like any kind of illusion, or maybe even imagery and art and painting has, like, maybe it's not always it's literally the color blue, but it's like blue aspected, or it's associated in a loose sense with like the concept of all the blue shit.
Love it. See? We're already getting into like magic. Like now
Yeah.
anytime someone casts an illusion spell in your game, you just say a bunch of blue sparkles appear.
And you know, if we are like starting to draw these little spider web relations between these things, I think maybe a sort of opposition of blue, either blue and red or blue and yellow, of like illusion versus like real.
Mm.
You
I
know,
was
like,
gonna say for yellow, I was gonna say bones.
yeah, Bones is great. We love that.
So I like that because bones is it's like very material, right?
Yeah.
It's innate. It also kind of represents in a weird way, sort of like life. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's interesting to have uh sun. You usually think of sun as like, oh great, like warmth and light and wonderful, and bones is almost like the most extreme end of that.
Yeah.
So it's you're
Like
sort of
bookended.
capstoning. Yeah, you're giving yellow a wide range.
Yeah.
know
Right.
I think that's important.
Yeah. Lady Stuff says, almost nothing in nature is truly blue. Things that appear blue actually use structural colorization or coloration to form the illusion of blue.
Incredible.
Fascinating. I love that. Fits in with the whole illusion thing. So yeah, but I do think we should take that idea of like illusion is blue and like honestly any of the other colors like sitting at the opposite pole of like being associated with the more grounded, visceral, real, like primal. Like there, to me, there is something there of like if blue is mirrors and reflection, that there's something about what's far away from blue being like, you know, it's almost like if blue
It's the
is illusion
antithesis,
and
right?
transmutation or conjuration or something, it's like something else over there is like red. I don't know, or whatever other color.
Well,
I
and
can see an argument for any of it.
here's where we can kind of backtrack a little bit with our shapes. So now that you have like colors and qualities of these things, you can actually start to imagine them in space. Uh, we can get real freaky here. So I wonder. Here we go. Drawing. Ha. Is it gonna let me do this? It might not because you're in it. Oh no, it's gonna let me. All right. So we're gonna make a square, a quadrilateral, and we're gonna start chopping it up so that we can start displaying things in space. Spies for all my Tim Curry fans out there. Okay. I'm going to try to add some colors to this so that we can start doing some color stuff. That is going to be, all right. What are my 4 colors again? Black, blue, yellow, and red, right?
Yes, correct.
Blue. All right. Always forget I'm on a Mac.
Brutal. Can't see it.
Yellow, right? Yeah.
Yes,
That's a bad.
red, black,
That
blue,
is a
yellow.
bad yellow. All right. So let's do this slightly different. Okay. I don't know if it's gonna let me put this in here.
Okay.
It's just like not letting me do it for some reason.
Weird.
Like I hit the save and close and it does nothing. That's fine. All right, imagine a square.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this in visual space. Imagine a square, and in that square.
Oh, okay. Interesting. If I click into the edit, I can actually see it. So.
Oh, you can.
Yeah,
And
it's
you can,
not showing it on the
yeah.
in the dock, but it will show it to me if I click into it. So.
All right, so here's a square, and if I manipulate this in real time, does it show it on the
Yes,
screen?
I am seeing it move around.
Cool. Okay, then that's what we're gonna do. All right, here's a square that I threw together hastily, made of squares. Again, the number 4. There are 4 squares in a square. It's 4 and it's 1, and when the 4 and the 1 and the 5, you get it. You're following, right? So you have 4 colors in the square, which again is the physical representation of the number 4. The 4 colors that we chose to be all colors are red, blue, black, and yellow. And we can arrange them however we want. And we can start saying, like, we could literally start typing in here, like, you know, magic. And boom. Okay, well, if blue is magic, what is yellow? It's like material or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can come up with better terms, but you're starting to get the picture, I hope, out there in internet land.
Yeah.
So this is a way, if you are visual, if you're mathematically minded, you know, if you enjoy like poetic association, there are many ways for you to use this method of like just pick a number,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, and so yeah, I feel like we've done some stuff on 4 here.
Yes.
And I
Time for
hope
the
that folks
crabs.
have seen not only like how to do this, but also what it gets you, right? Like what I think what you folks saw as we were working through this is once we had decided on a thing, we started to form this kind of web of association and ideas, some of which were sort of like the logically obvious things, some of which were maybe like left turns or right turns into something kind of different and intriguing, and essentially what one of the things that like we're trying to do here as well is when you're doing something creative, oftentimes the blank page with no constraints is the hardest thing to like when you're sitting staring at the blank page and the cursor is blinking, right? It can be hard to start, right? And that most of the time what you have to do is give yourself some kind of arbitrary starting point, right? And then begin to form these associations. So we sort of just picked, again, axiomatically, this is true. The number 4 is important. Now, whether it's metaphysically important as in like that's a fundamental truth of the world, it could be that, or it could just be like this is what everyone believes is true, and therefore parts of the world reflect it, whether or not it has to be. There's a lot you could mess with it, right? But I hope you see how it just starts to immediately imply a bunch of other stuff that you can sort of like grab what seems interesting, right? And that's what you get from this relatively simple, like, hey, I'm just going to pick a number and decide that number matters, right?
Exactly.
And you can do this not just with a number, but with a whole lot of other arbitrary things, right?
So I want to give you a bit of a layup for the crabs so that you can start running away with it, and I play wingman in the world building.
Hell yeah.
So crabs in real life, crabs have 10 appendages. They have 4 little ones, and they have a pincer on each side. So for those of you counting at home, that's 10 limbs, 5 on each side. But the good number is 4. Exactly. If the good number is 4, what can't crabs be? Good. So the crabs have to be the antagonist of the world. That's my layup to you.
Great. So, just to sort of to build on that,
the crabs are the result of the 1 and the 4 coming together.
Sure. Twice, even.
Even worse.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love that. So we know the crabs are evil. So we're going to write that down. What are the crabs? Evil.
Evil.
But it gives us an opportunity to think, I think maybe do something that's very fun. If the crabs with their 10 appendages are evil, what are spiders with their collections of 4s?
Ultimate good.
Yeah. So that gives us a chance to take something that's normally like
beauty.
Yeah.
Spiders are good.
Spider's good. Okay, but what I want to talk about is a little bit how I approach this and one of the fundamental tools that I use, right? So we've kind of decided on my end of it, we're coming at this from the angle of myth making and world building, right? But you're also going to see me here deploy a technique that I like to call what must be true. Okay, what must be true is one of my favorite world building questions because like oftentimes the way I'll approach this is I'll start with something I think is cool, a nugget, the little core of the world building. That could be anything from a single image or a geographical feature or some aspect of the magical or metaphysical reality or a political arrangement or like something, I pick a thing that I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I want to build a world that has that in it, right? And that is sort of my arbitrary starting point. And then I start to ask myself, okay, what must be true, right? As a result of me having chosen this thing, it's kind of like, what are the implications of that thing? And you sort of have seen me a little bit of what's going on with these questions here, right? And also, as we were asking questions about 4, right? I'll give you just a real quick example of me using this in another context, and then we'll jump into this. In another context, when I was building one of my first settings, Einor, after which the channel is named, the first town that I built is a place called Pine Hunt. And the idea that I had for Pine Hunt stemmed from an idea of a couple of things. I was looking at a lot of fantasy maps, and I was seeing a lot of them where the entire town was on like one side of a river, kind of, right? And I was like, what if you had a town that really split a river, where the river kind of just runs through the middle of town? And then I had this idea of like, what if there was like wooden walls around the town, and then a sort of like Helm's Deep like little culvert, sort of, but not exactly, because there's like a river gate there, but it's like that there's sort of a spot where the water runs through the walls, kind of, right? The example I want to give here of what must be true is when I decided that there were walls in the town, I asked myself what must be true, and I said, well, if there's walls in the town, there's a threat to the town, right? Because you don't build walls if nothing is ever has or is ever going to attack this town, right? So that's the kind of stuff I like to do of like, well, if you've put walls on a town, it either needs to now be under attack or have at some point been under attack, right? Or have some reason to believe that it will be under attack, right? So that's the kind of stuff I like to do of, and then I will follow, well, if I've put walls and it's under attack, what must be true? Well, there's probably some sort of...
The crabs are coming.
You know, the crabs are coming. And probably there's some sort of police force or army or militia or whatever, right? That somebody is... Not only are there walls, but when they get attacked, somebody has got to fight these things, right? So, okay, so let's do that with the crabs are coming. So I think the idea of the myth of the crabs are coming is pulling from, again, not that we're going to recreate this, but the idea of the myth was pitching the Mass Effect universe, basically, right? Which is that there is some kind of like ancient thing. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Right. There's some, but in this case, it's like, okay, so the crabs are coming. Right. So I think we've got to decide what is the deal with the crabs, right? Okay, so we think they're evil because they've got 10 appendages, right?
I think that they are the result of the completion of evil. So if 1 is evil, like 1 is the bad number, 4 is the good number, 5 is what happens when 1 gets to 4. So I think crabs are the result of whatever the worst thing imaginable could be.
Interesting.
So crabs are the goal. The crabs are coming. How are they coming? Who's bringing them?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Okay, so I guess here's the question is, are things becoming crabs, or are the crabs existing somewhere and arriving?
Okay, so we have to talk about carcinization. Carcinization
yes,
is
of course.
the term.
We all know carcinization.
That literally is the scientific terms. It sounds like carcinogen, which gets its name from the word cancer, which is the Greek for crab. Okay. Cancer cells are named that because they look like little crabs. Fun fact. So carcinization is the term that biologists use to basically say that they observe that evolution, for whatever reason, as an iterative process, just tends to make crabs.
Yeah, it's sort of like in Elden Ring, there's the law of regression and the law of causality. Right? And the law of regression in Elden Ring is a metaphysical principle that arrives with the Golden Order fundamentalism, which is the tendency of all things to like pool meaning and to seek unity. And in this case, this is sort of like the law of carcinization, which is, you know, the law
everything
of
eventually will become a crab. Yeah. That's
okay, so then in this sense, the crab is the sort of like product of corruption, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's the end result. It's the end result.
When the good becomes corrupted, crab.
Yeah.
Right? When the good for becomes corrupted, some of my best friends are crab. When the good becomes a corrupted crab. Okay, so that's kind of a sense of who and what the crabs are, metaphysically in a way, sort of like in a you know. So what I think would be interesting here, if we're talking about the concept of myth making, right? As I'm trying to see and sort of talk about how it's deployed in world building is a little bit pulling from how it's deployed in the world, right? And then in a sense, myths are a way of a culture to express itself and reinforce its own kind of idealization. If that
Okay.
makes sense, right? And it's often like which myths are made and which myths are propagated and stuff. It's like to some extent there's agenda to that, right? So what I would point to here is something like the myth of the divine right of kings in any place that's ever had a king that ruled by the divine right of kings, whether that's, you know, an emperor who's supposed to be a god, or whether that's a king who is chosen by God. That's a myth that is being deployed by people, right? To reinforce a kind of powerful structure that they benefit from, right? And
It's
so
a story that answers what must be true to normal people in your world.
right. But the point I want to make here is that like it doesn't have to be true and it doesn't have to be exactly false, right? Like the myth of, let's say, Paul Bunyan, right? Like in America, the myth of
True
Paul Bunyan
American
kind of
hero.
serves the goal of Manifest Destiny, right? That like that the rugged American can um you
Toil
know,
his way
exactly. And that
out
he has
out of
mastery
wild
over the
nature.
wilds and all of this stuff. And it kind of brushes under the rug a whole lot of the like nastier aspects of all of the horrible genocide that happened to make that happen. But you see what I'm getting. So, you
Yeah.
know, oh, that's all good, Delport. Who asks, are single adults considered suspect in society because one is the loneliest number and families of exactly 4 people considered lucky?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing I also would maybe put here is that like that also doesn't that could be true of one of the societies and maybe not all of them, right? Like it's, you know, there isn't necessarily a reason why every society we invent for the world sort of has to follow this sacred number logic.
Oh, so this was another thing I wanted to put forward that I think is really useful for world building. One of the things that you're going to need in your world are groups, organizations, voluntary associations of people, peoples, however you define that in your world building. And one of my favorite kinds of those are cults. And what's great about cults is that they are essentially fan clubs of belief with stakes in the world. So you can have a cult that believes that the number 4 is the absolute best thing that could ever happen, and that might be the dominant philosophy, spirituality in your world. And then you could have a cult of 5 who are all secretly trying to bring about the end of everything
Yeah,
because they want the crabs to come.
right. So, as I'm thinking about myth making and world building, here's what is coming to me about the crabs and the crabs being a result of like evil completing its agenda and sort of corrupting the things that are good is that there is at least some society somewhere in this world, and they're probably relatively important and powerful, relative, you know, one of the major sort of poles of power in the world is a group of people whose myth surrounds them like overcoming crabs, basically, right? That they
Right.
somehow defeated or pushed back or whatever, right?
Well, it was obviously the Holy Four.
Sure. Yeah. Um and so but what I want to point out here is I think a more interesting thing to do than just say, okay, these people defeated the crabs and then they told everyone we should be in charge because we defeated the crabs because of the power of 4 is to like I think make it more interesting is to introduce ways in which that is not entirely true. Very sleepy, going to bed. All good, bonus mom. We'll catch you later. I know it's late here. Right? So, like, essentially what I'm saying is, like, there was a real event in which crabs, you know, appeared and were defeated, right? And maybe even the people that they're saying did that, but there's something about it that is being either, like, fully fabricated or kind of misrepresented in order to support this group's claim to power, right?
Yeah, so I like kind of like to think of this as like the telephone effect, but like there's obviously a little bit there's an agenda to it, but like
Yes.
yeah, so
Exactly what I'm
that's the
describing is the telephone
yeah.
effect with an agenda, right?
So like the
Somewhere
game
in the
of
chain, there
telephone,
are people
right?
who are changing what is being sent through the telephone in order to, at the end of the chain, mean that we should be in charge and everyone should have to listen to what we say, right?
Exactly.
And to convince enough other people that of the truth of that, right? And so and that's the thing that I feel like you pulling from like Dark Souls games and Elden Rings, and also just kind of political reality, right? But that's the thing that I think is very often true in those games is that like God is a fucking liar, basically.
Yeah.
If you find a God in a Dark Souls game, it's lying to you, right? And so I like that idea of okay, this is how we're like, we have some historical events and then we're deploying a particular kind of thing. So let's flesh some of that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
So let's go with, and then let's maybe try to, like use some of what we did in the 4 stuff, right? So crabs are coming. Crabs are coming, and I'm gonna say in this case, crabs are coming back. Right? This is the myth that there were crabs
before,
and then there weren't crabs, and then the crabs are coming back. Okay. So I don't know, the 4 saints / the holy 4 defeated the crabs in days of old. Okay.
Incredible.
All right. So what must be true? Well, there must have been days of old. There must have been at least 4 people alive, and the crabs must have been defeatable, and they must have showed up, right?
Right.
So here's a question: Why did the crabs show up in the first place?
So the crabs showed up. I think we just I want to lean on this idea of carcinization. I think the crabs showed up because it was sort of like an evolutionary event or a creation event of some kind. I think there was a locus of their creation. I think there was an impetus.
Okay, so here's a question.
And it was the one that made the crabs come.
Okay.
So
the Dawn
if
of
that's
the Carpus, the Crimson Scuttling, we're pitching names. Love it.
oh, fantastic! Thank you. I love it, Chet. So all right, so we know
evidence
that
ties used to
four
be
is good.
higher.
4 is good because 4 is stable, as long as 1 is kept separate.
Yeah.
But when 1 joins 4, either through some sort of trickery or some kind of, corruption or something.
Yeah.
So why don't we try to figure out who 1 is and who 4 are?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see a couple of different ways of looking at this, right? I think the like easiest and kind of most basic, and therefore I'm inclined not to go with this answer, but it is the first one that pops into mind, is something along the lines of like 4 gods or powerful beings sealed away the Dark One in the depths of the earth or under the sea or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
it can be as generic as you want because as you express your world, you and your players are going to make it special. So there's nothing wrong with
but I kind of want to take a second and just see if we can come up with anything else, right? Maybe here's a thought. Well, yeah, okay. If we go with the first one, I think what we go with is a hand thought,
Okay.
right? Maybe there's something here and it could, in a sense, lead down a rabbit hole to like a deep secret truth of this world.
Mhm.
Something about 4 being more associated with animal and 5 being more associated with like
People?
sapiens, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe there's something
five-fingered
of
beings.
so maybe there's something of like, again, this kind of like there's 4 gods and then there's 1 god and or a trickster or something that like gives the power of sapience to human beings, and then they're kind of inherently a mixture of good and evil because they have 4 limbs but 5 fingers. You know what I mean? Like that there's a kind of like a, and maybe it's not like a, maybe it's not a dark evil one in the sense of like the sort of Christian Satan, but maybe it is a trickster in the sense of a Loki or a, or different
Illusion.
traditions
So
that have
blue.
the kind of like trickster figure, right?
So maybe blue and the number 1 and illusions and mirrors, those are all in the same bucket now.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe the one uses mirrors to trick 4 into doing something, which brings about a cataclysmic brace of crabs.
Well, because the thing that I'm kind of maybe getting at here a little bit is like, is a metaphysical kind of history in which there's like creation is made, the introduction of sapience into the animal world is kind of inherently a corruption that happens because of the 5th finger, right? The thumb.
Mm,
And that somehow the 4
the
like
thumb
attempt
is
to,
proof.
right, but and like and that what but and what the 4 do is they're like, we're gonna attempt to redeem the sapient creatures of the world with the thumbs, right? We're gonna attempt to redeem them and seal away this trickster so that we don't have to just wipe them out completely. And as a result, they like in a sense have crab hands. You know what I mean? Like they have this like you know, and it maybe speaks to this like duality of man situation, right? Where there's good and evil, you know, but also that like that we can also point to whatever this trickster is responsible for crabs. You know what I mean? Like it's like his second attempt at at I don't know, corrupting this world or playing some I don't know. There's, to me it seems like there's something there of like, you know.
The crabs are like left over from something. They're like a
Well, or it's just
reminder.
like he um oh god, okay. I don't know. Well, maybe I don't know. Spider monkeys and squirrels have 4 fingers on their front paws. Hell yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at is like it
'Cause they
gives
haven't
us
been
an
corrupted.
angle into a kind of like corruption narrative for the sapient beings of the world and to explain why they have the capacity for evil, right? In a
Okay.
way, because like we wouldn't call a dog doing dog stuff evil because it doesn't have that capacity for moral reasoning, right? But we would say that a person is capable of doing evil, and that like and that I think that this is the result of whatever this trickster is, that in giving them sapience and thumbs, like that the like you know that the thumb is the source of the sapience somehow. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? I don't know.
Well, okay, so sapience, knowledge, illusions. So like maybe it's like maybe we sort of associate it with sort of like the ability to determine like truth from false, or like the ability to understand or to like have knowledge. So maybe one has something to do with uh the creation of people. Maybe one is some sort of creator, right? A higher power of some sort. And maybe instead of being bad, they're portrayed as bad in whatever, maybe they're not actually bad. Maybe one made sapiens, 5-fingered beings, out of the goodness of its heart by elevating animals with knowledge. I mean, this is basically, this is a creation myth
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm
already.
doing here. Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
inherently I'm doing a creation myth. Delport says, am I familiar with the Five Sons mythology? No, I'm not. Maybe there was one culture
yeah,
people were told they were bad, gods removed them and made a good one. Then the good second culture became corrupted into a third different culture. Gods cleared that culture away and made a good fourth culture, doubling down the nature of the censure. Fourth people, stories of the fifth people are sort of Ragnarok myth.
yep.
Yeah, you could. Um, yeah, because like okay, so I'm slamming together a bunch of different stuff here, right? We've got a creation myth. I think in a sense what I'm talking about with the four and the one and the sapiization of creatures giving knowledge and intelligence and tool making to living beings, creating the whole gamut in this world of whatever beings are, sapient, language using, tool using creatures, right? That was the act of the one corrupting the creation of the others, or at least in one version of events corrupting the others. Other people might see that differently.
In one person's interpretation,
right?
maybe, right?
Yeah. But also doing a bit of a Noah and the Ark thing of like, they try to seal away this trickster or this one to reassert themselves as the four, and in doing so, they're trying to redeem the sapient creatures in a way, you know what I mean? Because like they don't want to just wipe everything out, but so they're like doing a little, but they have to. It's like there's something there to me that it's like they acknowledge these things have now the capacity for evil, but they don't want to just wipe them out wholesale. So the four are now trying to institute a sort of like
so
culture and way of being that like redeems them or whatever. Again, in one version.
So what if the crabs that are coming are actually not the result of the one that created five-fingered beings? Maybe it's the result of a different one. Maybe the crabs are a competing five, higher order of something.
I think what we can do here, I love that idea, and I think what we can do is incorporate the color black.
Okay,
because we've got the blackness of the sky and the blackness of the deep. What if there is a sort of inherent duality and connection? And there could be people who think that this one is the same, and then some that think it's not the same. But so that there's at least, you see what I'm saying? So that there's that there's the one from the sky and the one from the deep, and some people think they're different, and some people think that it's the donut that connects or whatever, right? But that the crabs are definitely a result of the one from the deep. And then there's debate about whether the creatures of land are the ones from the sky or if that's all the same guy.
You just invented a belief system.
Right?
Congratulations.
The moon in the ocean is different from the moon in the sky. Well, it's a reflection. So I think, that there is something about the reflection and the mirror dimension, and maybe the connection between black and blue is kind of important here. Right?
Yeah.
Because we've got the sky and we've got the deep, but then we also have illusion, and like reflection and water. I don't know. There's something there, right?
And at this point, I do want to point out that like these kinds of decisions compound upon each other. And in a weird way, even though you are making more decisions and therefore sort of cutting off possibilities, you're actually leading to more decisions to make, because now you have a framework for making them and you can make them way quicker.
Yeah. Right. And I think it's also obvious how we're tying, and this is kind of what you were saying there, we're tying the work that we've done previously back into the new stuff that we're coming up with to both reinforce what we've already done and create these new branches to go down, right?
Everything is connected to every other thing. It's sort of like a Kevin Bacon, degrees of distance. And in that way, you're actually creating like a pretty intense network of things that you can reference.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do one of your favorite things, and I'm going to also honor what Delport said in the chat.
The moon is the blue moon is in the bottom of the ocean, and the yellow.
Well, what
sun...
I'm going to do is pull a Beast Wilds and say that the trickster is trapped in the moon.
Shit.
We're going to make the moon weird.
What if the moon is actually underwater? And it's only an illusion, a reflection of the moon.
Oh God, you're flipping. Which one is in the sky? Okay, which one is fake?
Yeah, it's a fake sky moon, because the moon is actually in the deep with the crabs, because the crabs are coming.
Okay, and we're about an hour into this, and I know you've got work, so feel free to let me know whenever you need to call it. but I think we've got some interesting stuff here, right? We've got this idea of four saints defeating the crabs in the days of old. And I think that is sort of leading us to almost backtrack to a creation myth, right? And say that okay, so there are four holy gods. We'll call them for now. You know, we'll clean up this language at some point maybe. There are four holy gods and one, I'm going to call it trickster god. Does that seem fair at this point?
I think that's very fair, yeah.
The trickster god gave thumbs and intelligence to the animal creations of the
how dare they give us thumbs.
The Holy Four. Sorry.
Everything
Four,
went downhill
introducing
the moment we got thumbs.
Evil and moral reasoning and knowledge and thinking and truth and lies, etc., into the world, right? Because I think this is the thing, right? This is almost like the original sin. The Holy Tetrarchy, great, love it. We'll call them the Holy Tetrarchs. Okay. Is that this is again, we're kind of pulling a Garden of Eden myth here. We're sort of like wrapping that in, and I just like the idea that like this is sort of the foundational quote unquote sin of this cosmology, right? Is that like the introduction of all, and I think to me, all of this stuff flows naturally for, it's like, to me, it's a bunch of different little concepts that are all like the same nugget, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, so the idea of evil, good and evil and moral reasoning, knowledge at all, you know, it's like identity, knowledge of the self, moral reasoning, thinking, meta-thinking, philosophy, all of this stuff is related
and
to
this goes back to another
know, tip
that we've already given you guys, which is essentially to steal stuff.
Yes.
This is
100%.
all stuff that you're probably fairly familiar with,
yeah,
from something, whether it's, you know, your form of worship, your school education, a book that you read, you know, that this is all familiar to you, and you can see how easy it is to sort of spiral off with the thing that feels right.
Yeah. Okay. When you introduce the thumb, you introduce the thumbs up and the thumbs down, which is really the turning point of the world.
Ooh, that's a good one. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Phenomenal.
Yeah, thumbs up and thumbs
way to go,
down.
Ladies, though.
Become really important signs, symbols. Okay.
Because it's referring to the moons. Are you the real moon, or are you a false moon?
If there's an original sin analog of only the trickster, does that mean crabs don't have original sin and that's don't understand the concept of good and evil? Or it could mean that their thinking is so advanced that they've passed beyond good and evil.
They've completely removed themselves from morality.
Who can say? I don't know. Okay, so here's what I think, right? I think that this trickster god gives thumbs and intelligence to the animal creation of the Holy Tetrarch. Okay, all of that stuff. None of this now describes the introduction of thinking, reasoning beings into the world. What it does not yet describe, and I would maybe like to nail down before we call it a night, is the introduction of the crabs into the world, right? So how do we get from this? Because I think the idea of like, okay, did the trickster god get free and then create crabs, and then the killing of the like banishing of the crabs and the banishing of the trickster god are the thing that gives rise to the creation myth of this holy empire we're discovering? Does there become a cycle of crabs where this guy periodically gets free? Is there sort of an eclipse metaphor here where whenever there's eclipse, he's free to go make some crabs? Like, what are we kind of like doing and feeling here? You know what I mean?
I like that. Yeah, so since we've already sort of associated the one with the moon, why don't we continue to lean on that by saying, like, why don't we invent, like you said, an eclipse, but maybe a completely new and unique celestial event involving the moon, the weird moon stuff going on,
Yeah.
and then that is sort of
Um,
the day that this stuff can happen.
Delport suggested earlier
Yeah.
is about a celestial alignment with like one moon and maybe 4 visible planets coming into alignment, or
Fun.
something. Maybe there's something with like the moon and its reflection. Because okay.
Whoa,
Hang
whoa,
on.
whoa, whoa,
Big brain
whoa,
shit. We
whoa.
could do planets. Planets could be fun. That could be a very fertile area. But what if there's a moon? There's a
Okay, there's
reflection
a
of a
moon.
moon. There's a
Yeah,
sun. There's a
yeah.
reflection of a sun. Now
Oh
we
my
have
goodness.
4 things. If
That's 2
they
and 2.
align into one thing,
That's
now we have
numbers.
1, baby. What do we think? What do we think?
Phenomenal.
Feel good
Phenomenal.
about it? And that somehow this double eclipse, right? 4 things becoming 1 gives us, the ability of this trickster to get out or whatever. I don't know, right?
It's like April Fools, but for the whole world and actually.
And I think maybe we then come up with there's some kind of like what if there's a like how do I put this? What if this is a thing that happens periodically? How do you get the reflection in alignment with the sky? Wouldn't that be 2 eclipses? That's sort of what I'm getting at next is like, what if there's a
Magic.
sort of material and mechanical component of making this happening or not making it happen? By which I mean, what if it's unexpected the first time it happens, which is when the crabs are first introduced, because the
Okay.
4 didn't think that far ahead. They didn't plan for that. They were like, we stick them in the moon, it's fine. And then, we have the moon, we have the reflection of the moon, we have we have the 4, they
And the
become
crabs
1,
are
and he's
coming.
like, yo, that's my ticket out of here, baby, let's go. He goes, he does some crab stuff, right? And then, they have to fight him and trap him back in the moon. And so then they plan. And so like, okay, well now we need to come up with a mechanism to stop this from happening. So what if there is some mechanism to stop magical, metaphysical, literally physical, I don't know what, right? Maybe there's a storm every time this would happen, so the reflections can't be seen. Therefore, the light from the moon never reaches the water, and therefore you know what I mean. So maybe that's their thing, and then like if people can use magic to control weather, they can stop that. Okay, like so maybe I don't know the answer to that question, but it seems to me that there's something there of like the thing they come up with a solution. The solution has a flaw they don't realize. It leads to this like crabaclysm situation, right?
Crabaclysm.
And then the god, these so-called good gods figure out a workaround for that, right? But it involves materiality in some way that can be interrupted, and therefore that's why the crabs come from time to time, is that somebody always thinks it's a good idea to interrupt this. You know what I mean?
And those are the kinds of questions that you will need to figure out if you would like to build a world. And I think that's probably a great place to wrap this session.
Yeah, I just want to write that stuff down so I don't forget it. This
Don't forget all your
the
crab lore, folks.
trickster to get free.
That's the first stop on the
So
crazy
then,
train,
okay,
when you forget all your crab lore.
the crabaclysm. We're not actually going to use that name. Okay, and then boom, we go back to the end, and after the 4 saints, heroes chosen by the
Crabaclysm.
holy
Brilliant.
tetrarchs, defeat the crabs and help banish the trickster back to the moon. The tetrarchs devise a mechanism to prevent tetrarchs. Okay. To prevent
Immune.
the double eclipse from happening again. But this mechanism can be interrupted. Therefore, the descendants of the 4 saints must maintain constant vigilance against the encroachment of the crabs. Okay, all right.
Cannot stress enough, as soon as that vigilance is no longer constant, everything goes bad.
Right. At least according to these people who are descended from the people that made it that way in the first place.
There's at least one cult in your world that believes that.
Okay, I am gonna, since we're ending here soon, I'm gonna throw in, I'm just gonna like grab some of the stuff you guys said in chat, and just write it down here. I don't need to bold that, do I?
Yeah, great. Lovely having you all in chat tonight.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
And then, is the world an archipelago? Okay. I was going to throw these. We may come back to this and keep working, or we may decide to, you know, do another thing at some point. So, okay, great. Well, yeah, like I said, thank you so much. I don't want to keep Beast up because I know it's late. So we are going to call it a night here, gang. I hope that this was able to explicate some of the ways that we approach this and hopefully provided some useful, real examples of some of the stuff that we've been saying in the past. We wanted to do these one a month. We definitely aren't going to keep that up, but, you know, hey, we're having fun. We'll do another one at some point. And I think we will either continue with this or we might pick some different examples of things and do, but I do think we want to do some, like, you know, more examples before we jump back into more theory stuff. So, great. Thanks for hanging out,
y'all.
Peace out.
Yeah.
We'll catch you next time.
Let me tell a tale of a world where heroes walk among us, fighting through the darkness left by monsters and by selfish men. A tale of glory rents asunder, sacrifice and battles lost. Our heroes know not what awaits them, and still they carry on. Let me sing a song of a family forged by trials and woe. On their own they falter, but together they will write their own tale of glory rent asunder, sacrifice and battles lost. Our heroes know not what awaits them, and still they carry on. What was rent shall be restored. What was lost now shall be found. The price of